want to talk about a couple of more albums. The Totally Connected album, '79, you guys were really dapper looking on that cover. It was kind of a change in the aesthetic, at least visually. And that album had the great title track, which was really funky. I Like Funkin' With You, Born to Boogie. Those are just a few samples.
Yeah.
You guys went for a different look and a little bit of a different sound, or what was happening then?
I think that was the first album that Theo produced. I'm just going to put some power in. I need to plug the power into my laptop.
Well, before we get back into that answer, you know, when you tell me how the producers impacted what you guys did, I would have loved to have heard some of the raw takes that you guys did.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know that some of those recordings are on some old cassettes and old reel-to-reels. Yeah, the thing is to get the devices that can play them back and to locate them. I know a lot of stuff is here in my dungeon. But yeah, there were a lot of changes, and you know, as we actually, when we went to Capitol, the producer that we had, he ended up, he was quite an incredible musician, and he ended up as the band leader for, was it American Idol? A guy by the name of Ray Chu. He was also the keyboard player for a group called Ashford and Simpson. So he, when we connected with him and we did our first album with Capitol, he enhanced what we had. And you know, you have some of the producers that enhanced, that were an enhancement, and there were others that just changed it altogether.
Well, you guys kind of came out on fire, I think. The first Capitol album was Everything Is Cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and it was real cool. The title cut was great. Groove City was a really cool funk jam. So when you first changed the labels, did you guys feel reinvigorated in some way?
Yeah, because there were some things that shifted that were positive from what we had with TK. You know, TK was a smaller label, and also music was shifting then too. So we ended up with, and we had a new manager, and he basically was shopping around to get the deal that he wanted. I mean, like, he knew that he would get us a deal. He found a loophole to get us off of TK, which at the time that's what we were seeking to do. And so he had, you know, because he has connections with Motown and all those labels, but there were certain provisions in the contract that he wanted sorted out, that he was able to get with Capitol. Yeah.
Well, it was definitely kind of a,
what's that?
I'm sorry. I was going to say it's definitely kind of a tricky period musically, turn of the decade there, because disco was waning,
yeah,
and electronics were coming in big, and you know, you guys had to kind of navigate through that, especially because you did have your foot in some of the disco stuff, but you successfully seemed to navigate it and continue on.
Yeah, it was quite the transition, because, like you say, it was pretty much the end of disco. And it was moving on into new movement, and the electronics were coming in, and you know, we had that duo that came out that turned out to not actually be singing, that was mining. You know, everything, it came down into superficial rather than music. So it was like how you looked, more so than how you sounded, which is exemplified by that, was it Milli Vanilli? Was that the name of those guys?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the infamous duo.
So they exemplified the whole shift, where it didn't matter what you were playing, and then we started to go into deteriorate to the demise of bands, and into just individual singers. And you know, where in order to find live drums, you have to look deep into a gospel album. So it's shifted big time.
Did you guys actually get into, doing music videos at that point? It was around the time in the early 80s when MTV came into vogue, and how did that affect you?
No, we never made it to that point. That never happened for us.
Is that why you stopped? You're like, we're not doing videos.
No, well, it was our contract with Capitol. Like I said, the music was shifting, and like with all of those label contracts, you have a certain time frame, and during that time, the label can decide to terminate it at any point. And after we did the Take It to the Limit, they decided, well, guys, this is it. We're not going to proceed any further with this. And then at that point, then Theo said he wanted to do some solo stuff. So he did do a solo album. And it pretty much just fizzled. And we then just moved on. I stayed at the recording studio that I was operating, and I ended up getting married at that time then too. So I stayed operating that for like 13 years and recording the local artists. And interesting thing that happened before they came out with MIDI, musical instrument digital interface that we use now to hook keyboards into computers, still using that. Prior to that coming into existence, the sampling technology that allowed you to have like real strings and real instruments in it. In its infancy, that technology was very expensive. And there were two companies. I remember that the one, Fairlight, was the one that, out of Australia, was the one that was sort of leading the way. But it was very limited, and it was what we know technically as 8-bit sound, which is very, very low quality. But that was, what it was at the time. And the guy who operated the recording studio, who owned the studio that I worked at, he was quite wealthy at that time. This machine was 30 grand for everything.
Wow.
Heard about it, he says, hey, I want that. Let's get that. And he got it. And there were very few that had it, and certainly we were the only ones in the Bahamas who had it. They didn't have one at Compass Point. And as you know, the Rolling Stones recorded there. And the Rolling Stones producer called us wanting to rent our Fairlight because, so they wouldn't have to bring one in. And like I said, it was an expensive thing. There was already one in the Bahamas. Just a matter of flying it over to Nassau. And so they wanted to use it in Compass Point, but the deal that we were trying to do is to get them to come into our studio there, because then that would give it the name, like the Rolling Stones. Then the floodgates open for that, but they didn't go for that, and then they just ended up getting it elsewhere.
But by what year was that, Dave?
And that would have been. It was in the 80s. That probably would have been about 84 or 85. Yeah. And in hindsight, what I would have done is to say to the owner, well, just let me go over there with it, because if they needed an operator, I can fly over there and we make the money. That would have been a great thing for me to have on my resume. In the studio with the Rolling Stones, it would have been a historical moment, but it didn't happen. Yeah. And then, of course, within like the next year and a half, 2 years, MIDI came out, and that thing was just an oversized paperweight. I remember when we took it to dump it in the garbage and something else.
It's like the old fax machines, right?
Yeah, I mean, technology is unforgiving. It makes a jump, and it doesn't matter if you've got 30 grand in it and they've come up with something that's $500. You're on your own. And when you're on your own, they drop all of the support, so you can use it until it breaks down. And if it needs parts, you're finished.
Yeah. So, the first Capitol album, Everything Is Cool, was really cool. The other three albums that came out after that, Pure and Natural, The Game of Life, and Take It to the Limit, which you mentioned a couple of times. Is there anything that you would like to, any tracks on those that you want to kind of like highlight, you know, that listeners or people watching might want to go back and check out those particular albums for those particular songs because maybe they were sort of passed over?
Yeah, let me, of course I don't have them in front of me in the name of the songs, but.
Well, if you name a song, I could tell you which one it was on.
Well, I know that Pure and Natural had Best of My Love, which has turned out to be the crowd favorite. That one has been the most sustained one. Then we have Paradise, which was on the first Capitol album. That one is very prominent. You know, a very classic, ethereal type of sort of like how Love Supreme is. You could call it sort of a sequel to that. You know, it's the same kind of dreamy, where it takes your mind on a trip. A Little More Love is another one that was quite prominent. We also had Heaven in Your Eyes was more of a kind of an old influence, like kind of a Nat King Cole kind of influence. It was like a very traditional type of sound that used the jazzy sound with more pop classical chord progressions. And then on the early album, Prisoner of My Mind is quite a classic, and I think I would say that T sort of bared his soul on that one. If you listen to the lyrics on it, you'll hear the very deep classical influences in it, and as well as the Elton John pop influence, which was he was quite influential in what we did and the type of chord movements. And the Let Yourself Go is another one that used an island flair along with progressive chords. There were quite a few.
For funk lovers, you said that the last one, Take It to the Limit, is pretty funky, right? So.
Yeah, that was quite funky. It was. You can hear sort of the James Brown influence in the lead sort of brassy line that's played with the synth. There's some of the influence in it, and that album was pretty much pure funk. And but yeah, like I said, music shifted. It shifted from musicians to looks and sound. The magic that made groups like us and the Commodores and all of that, which was us playing together and creating that sound just by us, and the magic of us all together just went down the tubes, and it just became sequencers and programmers, which I ended up becoming one of. And I did a lot of that over here in the Bahamas, did a lot of jingles. You know, I'm playing everything, and then as the loop technology evolved, and you can just pull in whatever elements you want to very easily, just drop them onto a timeline, and it just adjusted to the tempo. And so you end up with, you know, cut and paste music. But a lot of these hits that are out there now, people can't play a lick of music. They just know how to program, and they know how to put certain fields together and make it work, manipulate the computer, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than the instrument.
Right.
The computer.
You talked about a lot of those people that you ran into at the studios back in the day, and some of the guys that you shared stages with. Is there any show in particular that you recall, or an incident while you were on the road or performing that was maybe unforgettable or funny, or maybe there was a malfunction or something that stands out?
Let's see. We also toured with Bootsy Collins and Ray Parker Jr. and radio. Did some gigs with Average White Band, who also recorded in Compass Point. Slave, I don't know if you remember Slave. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we did a concert with them. one of the gigs that we did, the Capitol Center in Washington, D.C., we hadn't a clue, but I know somebody got shot there. We found out afterwards. We did, in New Jersey, we did a gig where the opening act was Dick Gregory. Remember him?
Yeah, he was a speaker.
Yeah. And, you know, it was one of those sort of gigs where the requirements are, you know, you pay 50% before the band goes, you know, in order to confirm the booking. And then before we go on stage, you pay the other 50%. And we were all pumped up. And the guy said, well, you know, I have some money to collect after the show, and we'll pay you after the show. And it's like, man, are we going to do this? We're all pumped up to do it. And so we said, okay, we go and do the show. And at the end of the show, we never got paid. So it was one of those don't ever do it again type of deals. And we, you know, we've done everything from clubs to big concert stages. And towards the end, you know, it's the music industry, you know, it's hit driven. And if your song is not a big hit, the bigger your hit, the better the gigs you get. And, you know, towards the latter part of it, we didn't have as big, our hits weren't as big. The very last tour we did was with War. You remember that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
They've been on the show.
And that was the last tour that we did. And I remember doing these rotating stages, circular stages, and it slowly rotates around because the room is circular.
In the round.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, we had some great times, and you know, we had, you know, just like when you have a group of people together, you have issues. And so we're no different than, you know, husband and wife get together as just two people and they have issues. So you can imagine you have a whole group of people. There are challenges in there.
What do you think it is about funk that people gravitate towards so much? And, you know, what to you makes the music unique and special? And what does it mean to you?
You mean funk of our day, the music of our day?
Yeah, the prime funk period, if you will.
You know, the rhythm just it you know, it makes your body move automatically. So you know, your head is bopping even if it's like it's almost on its, you know, it's automatic. The feel of it was just you know, back at that time, it was just quite a nice feeling. And you know, the deep funk, you know, comes from the heart of the ghetto. And you know, that just had a powerful feel to it. And it was a sound that you know, everybody who did funk really tried to grab that aspect of the ghetto, because that's really where it really came from, you know, and including us, you know, and the sounds of the Isley Brothers, and you know, the Pride and all of that stuff. That's like deep ghetto. You know, and that was a sound that we were all striving after, to get that funk, you know, that feel. And you know, it evolved into the hip hop, which again is ghetto, and that's mainstream. That's mainstream. Like even rock is not, rock as we knew it is not. It's not mainstream. You know.
So why didn't funk ever go as mainstream as rap and hip hop, do you think?
Why?
Yeah.
I think it's the feeling. It's the feeling of it. It's like if you're walking and you hear that beat, all of a sudden you walk, it's different. You just start feeling like, hey man, I'm it. You know? Whereas, you know, just straight music, you just keep walking. But when you hear that feeling, it has a hypnotic effect on your mind, and you really feel like you're greater than you are. You know what I'm saying? You feel powerful. You know, you're just moving with that, and that backbeat, it just pulls you.
Is there any particular riff that you came up with in one of the songs that you guys did that you're really proud of, or you think was, you know, particularly memorable, whether it's a riff or a particular part or a solo?
Yeah, I mean, there are. I know when I did this, my first experience in the studio, when I came there as a young college kid, going into the recording studio, into the big world. I'd never been into any recording studio, even a small one. And so as I was in there, and I went with my guitar, and I had this amp that gave me the overdrive sound that I wanted. You know, it's sound that all guitar players that have a rockish bluesy sound, you want to have this sort of overdrive in there, which is an analog sound, which, like today, the amp that I use a Vox amp that has digital components, but the front end is tube to give me that sound. And so I have the computer aspects of it so I can recall those sounds. But when I was in Criteria and T said, okay, you know, I got this song, I want you to play on it, a song called Playing Games. And that was my first solo playing. And I was like, you know, when he asked me to play it, because I'm here mesmerized, you know, totally dwarfed by the environment that I was in, you know, playing in this legendary studio with all of these, you know, that had so much greatness that had been in there before me. And so I played on this song, Playing Games. I played this rockish, well, totally rock solo with the wah-wah and my sort of Hendrix influence, which created quite a rage for people here in the Bahamas who heard it, and it's like, wow, who is this guitar player? And so when I came here like as a hero. It's like, how do you do that? What's the technique? And all these people wanted to take lessons from me and everything. So I mean, that's the most memorable moment for me, because it was my first experience. You know, and here I'm going into the studio, and it's like, you know, and I see these guys with the, you know, the engineers and stuff had their little spoons, and they were snorting the stuff, and I'm like, you know, this is the world. But my guys weren't into that. You know, the band was not into that. Probably my favorite solos were, because there were a number of them. What comes to mind, Best of My Love. I love the solo work I did in that. There's another one that I did on the last album, which, you know, like I said, as it went later, we weren't as popular. There's a song called In Another Life, and the guitar solo that I did in that I really like. You know, my thing was a rocky sound, rockish blues sound. And so, and I like what I did, and Everything Is Cool. That's one of the few songs that I got to write in the band. And so I was influenced by Johnny Guitar Watson. Mm-hmm. And so that solo and the harmonics and the stuff that I did in that, I quite like, because, you know, when I wrote that, you know, I did the demo at the house on my studio with the riffs and that, and it pretty much, for the most part, ended up being interpreted a lot like that. But it was really enhanced when Theo played that the keyboard that he played on it with his sort of an eighth note feel on it, that it really enhanced the swing feel of it, that gave it almost a hip hop type of element to it.
Has the band been sampled much?
Yeah, the band has been sampled. I've heard there on YouTube there are a couple things that have been done with samples, and I know that Theo on That's Love, which was, I think that was on the Totally Connected album, or other song, That's Love. That song actually ended up being recut in France and went gold. So Theo did very well with that one. Same Old Merry-Go-Round, That's Love. That's a beautiful song.
Yeah, Totally Connected.
Yeah. So, and that had Isley Brothers influence with the beat, but the chords are what made it different, that we would use, you know, because like I said, Theo is quite an advanced musician, so a lot of the chords, even though we fused them into pop, a lot of those chords in there are not, I mean, fuse it into funk, a lot of those chords are not the type of chords you'd hear normally in that style of music. You know, like watching All the Girls Go By, which is on the Pure and Natural album, which has a great funk feel to it and has the Bahamian elements in it. But you listen to like the 13th chords and the 6, 9, flat 5, and all these chords that you wouldn't hear in pop music. Those were integrated into it. And so the band garnered a lot of respect from musicians. There were comments made by Babyface and guys like that who were influenced by the band because musically we weren't just another band just playing a groove. We were integrating, you know, musical aspects, theoretical musical aspects that were different on another level from just playing straight ahead funk. Mm-hmm. So we had the groove, but we would incorporate other elements that you wouldn't usually hear in the music at that time.
How did you come up, or how did it existed before you were there? So what is the origin of the name T-Connection?
As T explains it, there was a movie at that time called French Connection, mm-hmm. which he quite liked, and it's like he decided to name the band T-Connection, similar to that, and yeah, that's how it happened.
And did you use a lot of foot pedals? You mentioned some wah-wah. Are you a pedal guy, or? Yeah.
So I have my overdrive pedal, chorus, a couple other types of distortion, wah-wah, and now I have the amplifier. They have what they call amplifier modeling. So. And within it, because like I said, it's a hybrid between tube technology and modern technology, so that I can recall my sounds. You know, they actually have presets that are called B.B. King, Van Halen, Clapton. You know, so you pull up these presets and then you can tweak them and save them. And so on my Vox amp, what I do is I have a foot pedal, so I don't have a bunch of individual pedals. I have a foot switch that allows me to pull up the sounds that I pre-programmed into the amp, which is pretty cool. I mean, I'm looking at trying out the Line 6 or the Digitech, because now they have ones that have everything in it, and actually you can even hook it to your computer and USB and access more controls and set your presets differently. Because the thing that I do miss is having my volume on the foot pedal, and I always use that because then I can control the amplifier gain without affecting the sound, because all of the sound processing comes prior to the amplifier, so I have everything processed and I'm just feeding the amp what I want the amp to get. So the challenge I find now is, because I don't have the volume pedal, and if I put a volume pedal, it would affect the sound because the sound comes after the pedal. So a lot of times when I go to play now, I have to go and rush and put my hand behind the amp and turn it up louder or turn it down, because I try to anticipate by pre-programming the volume, but it's not always right. The situations are different, and so I end up having to, you know, sometimes I'm too loud, but other times I'm off, but sometimes I get it just right. Yeah.
Dave, so, you know, I think there's been a bit of a resurgence, if you will, of old school funk and the old school bands from that era. You know, there's these festivals that are going on now, and there's cruises, and there's things like that,
Bruno Mars has brought the 80s back, man.
Bruno Mars, huh?
Yeah, his Uptown Funk, that's straight from our era.
Yeah,
it's straight from our era, and it's massive. And I think that's the first video. I think that's gone to like 2 billion. I think. views on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's funk. That's like the only difference is, you know, the recording technology is better, but that's straight out funk from the 80s, like what we used to play.
Yeah.
So
To me,
like
I think it is, but it's not as good, but it is good
it's
and
good.
helpful to bring it back.
It's good, and he's got a couple other songs that sound like they came right out of the 80s.
Yeah. So, are you guys maybe gonna ever come play some stateside shows, or?
You know, the opportunity hasn't opened itself up. You know, time has passed on, and you know, I don't know to what extent we would, you know, we would be a draw, or where we'd be a draw. It certainly wouldn't be like when we did the concerts in the Bahamas. In the past, let's see, 2003, in the past, what, 16 years, 17 years, 13, 14 years, we've done about 6 or 7 reunion concerts. And, you know, each of the ones that we've done, with the exception of the last one, they were all like very, very packed. And we had, you know, we have like all sides of government there, you know, the Prime Minister. The last Prime Minister was at every concert we've ever done in Nassau, with the exception of the final one that we did. And the last one that we did, we didn't get the draw. It was a different type of pricing scheme and everything. That like the price of the tickets were like triple what they normally would be, and that's, you know, the promoters to do. But we didn't get the showing that we got at the previous ones. So, you know, don't know. Maybe is it too much of a good thing, or is it the, you know, the packaging, you know? So
I'm seeing these these bills that have, you know, Lakeside and, you know, several acts together. I'm just thinking, you know, why not T-Connection there too?
I mean, we probably could, you know, I think we could probably fit in to some of those, and, you know, depending on where it is, you know. Lakeside was huge. I remember that Fantastic Voyage was like a massive piece of music. It's good stuff.
It is. Yeah, great stuff. So how can folks listening or watching kind of keep up with David Mackey and stay in tune with what you're doing?
Well, people who like T-Connection, there is a T-Connection fan page that I created on Facebook that gets a lot of activity. It's called T-Connection Fans. You know, you can reach us through there. We've gotten people who are asking where we'll perform, and we have people who really love the group. And on YouTube, there's not a T-Connection channel, but there's a lot of our music there, and quite a long line of commentary by people who really like the band. Myself, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. My company's page is Mackey Media. That's M-A-C-K-E-Y Media Limited. And that's on there because my present work now is advertising, marketing, PR. I do a lot of television commercials. I do all of the KFC ads for this island. KFC, Pizza Hut. We've done, there's a big home center here that we do commercials for. Quite a number of clients we have that we produce and shoot and do the commercials with. A lot of it we do in our studio. We've got a studio that has the green wall, like what's behind me. Before I had that studio, I would come downstairs here, and that's why that wall is green like that. And shot a couple commercials down here. Yeah, so they can reach me. I'm on Facebook as David Mackey, and I'm also Mackey Media. T-Connection would be the easiest bet. Go to T-Connection Fans and touch bases with me. And if you want to reach out to Theo or any of the other bands, they're not as tech savvy as I am, because I do social media marketing and advertising campaigns and that type of thing. So, but I can certainly reach out to the guys. Theo is on Facebook, but not that often, but he is there. as far as the other guys, Pat Carey, who's with Bahamas, who sang on a number of our albums, and he toured with us. He's on Facebook. Again, not as much as I am. I have a couple clips of us in concert on that page. Actually, through Vimeo. There's a clip with us doing "Best of My Love," and then there's actually some clips with Theo with some of his original compositions that he's done. More not pop, but like there's a ragtime piece that he's done, and there's other stuff that he's done. He did do an album. I can't remember the name of it. He did a couple albums actually, instrumental with limited vocals in it. And he lives out in LA now, along with his brother. Kirk lives in LA, and he's married, and his brother is out there. And they play every now and then. They get to play together, but they don't actually work together. They play in different bands.
So on those commercials that you do now, do you have any input or say on the music they use for those commercials?
Oh yeah, I do. Some of them I actually create jingles for. In the early days, I used to do a lot of jingles for KFC. Not so much now. Budgets are constrained. Economy is stressed. But yeah, I now pretty much I will end up taking. There are some sites that have license-free music, and there's one that I subscribe to. So I'll pull up, music that'll work. Like today, I needed a certain type of feel. You can put in the type of words, and you have guys who create music for it, which I may end up doing some too and selling some, background music. But I mean, I'm so busy these days with advertising and that, and then my real fun treat is the band, and this band that I have is you can find us there too, called Uppercut 242. We have a Facebook page. Once a month we do an outdoor concert at a place here called the Dive-In, which is on a marina with yachts and everything. It's a place where they take people out to swim with dolphins and also to do shark dives and also to become certified as a diver. So once a month, the last Saturday of the month, we do an open air outdoor concert for locals and expats, who actually crave to hear some of the music from our era and hear something different and not just hear the same music that they hear that most of the bands play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, David, it's been so great catching up with you and reflecting on T-Connection's great contribution to music and funk and R&B and disco and all the great albums and songs. And so glad that you're still out there and doing it and doing what you do. And thank you so much for spending time and sharing those stories today.
It's been great. And I know you've been reaching out to me for the past month or so, or even longer, I think it has been. And
I'll hunt you down. I'll hunt you down.
Your persistence has paid off. It's finally happened, and it's been great. I love your room back there. A lot of history in back there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our initial plan was to do it in my studio, but it didn't happen. But we got it done. It's because it's all about the information.
We got green for all the money.
Yeah, that's right. I hope it starts to come soon. I'm waiting on it.
All right, so with that, we're going to close this edition of Truth and Rhythm. Thank you again for all the listeners and viewers. And again, thank you to David Mackey from T-Connection, Guitarist Supreme. And I want to remind listeners and viewers, if there's a musical artist that you want to see, email me at scottg@funkinstuff.net. Or if you're an artist that wants to be on the show, do the same. We'll try to get you on. So as always, until next time, this is Scott, Dr. J.X. Goldfine, and for David Mackey from T-Connection, signing off and saying, keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.
Hey, hey. All right, Scott, it's been great.